Okay, so we've got some compounds up here. If you choose, I suggest that you write them down, especially if you struggle with this. But there again, it's your choice. We're treating you, hopefully with respect, as young men and women. Okay, now, I'll give you a couple, well, we can do this as you go. Okay. All right. If you were to look at this, which one of these, or maybe all of them, which one of these or all of them would you say is probably the most difficult? Maybe you'd say all of them. This one? Maybe. Okay. Because are these monoatomic ions or polyatomic? Both of them are polyatomic ions. So what that means is this is where the compound would split. Okay? So with that, we say go by your negative ions. Okay? And that is on this side. What is OH? You're not going to find polyatomic ions on the table. It's not hydrate. It's not hydrate. It's got an X in it. Hydroxide. Okay? What is NH4? Is that written on your paper? Okay. You'd be helping yourself out if you write this down. This is ammonium hydroxide. Okay, this is -1, that's +1. The charges add up to 0, so you don't need to put any subscripts down there.
How do you know if it's
With the charges?
No, how do you know it's ammonium?
I'm telling you it is. Yeah, just like, okay, on the last page of your papers, this is on there, sulfates on there, SO4 -2. Correct? Okay, this I didn't put on there. So now I'm telling you that's what it is. Okay? I wouldn't expect you to know what sulfate is. That's why we have that wrote down for you. I wouldn't expect you to know what nitrate is. That's why it's on that paper. So what should have been down there, and that's my mistake, is NH4 should have been put on there for ammonium. All right.
Would you have to write +1 and -1?
No, it's...
ammonia.
Okay. What about it? It is a polyatomic ion. Do you have yesterday's papers where we wrote things down? Okay, we'll get it out. Because that's what's causing problems for you. We're trying to visualize this in our head, or do the math in our head, and it's not working out. What do you mean a copy for you? What are you talking about?
He didn't give it to us yet.
Okay. Find the very last page. Okay. What do you see right here? All right. Okay. Does this have any polyatomic ions in it? No, it doesn't. These are both monoatomics. Okay. So, what is Mn the symbol for? I think there's only one S in manganese. Okay? Okay. Notice we didn't write chlorine. Why is that?
Because it's oxidized.
It's ionized. I know what you mean. Okay? So, we say go by your negative ions. What does this halogen have for a charge?
I can't even put my stuff on the table anymore. Let's do so much going right now, Dan.
Okay. So, what is the charge of that halogen? This is a halogen.
+3.
What's the charge of that halogen? What's the charge of this halogen? -1. Okay. How many of them do you have? So that's an overall charge of negative what? Okay. So then this manganese must have to have a charge of what to add up to 0? Can it do that? Yes, it can. So when we write this out, how many different charges does manganese have? So do we have to pick one of them, or can we tell from the formula? So what Roman numeral do we need? Goes in parentheses. Okay? Any questions so far? All right. Last thing you'd want to do is add together these atomic masses. What is nitrogen?
14.07.
Okay. What is hydrogen?
2.
What is hydrogen?
1.
1.01. And how many of them do you have?
4.
How many of them do you have? How many of them do you have?
4.
How many of them do you have?
3. 6.
How many of them do you have?
2. 1. 2. 5.
5.
How do you have 5? Because there's 5 of them. And they are in 08. Yeah, tells me that.
You got 4 here, right? You got 1 there, right? I think 4 plus 1 gives you 5, correct?
Looking at manganese.
Okay. And what's the charge of oxygen? Okay. 1.01 times 5. What do you suppose that gives you? 5.05. Okay. Add these together. Okay. All right. Now, let's add together manganese chloride. Okay. Chlorine has an atomic mass of what? How many of them do we have? So you can take 35.45 times 3, then add manganese, which is 55? 161.35. Okay.
Nick, I can't hear you. You gotta be a little louder. Yeah. What? Someone dropped a Twisted Tea in my mailbox. You want some?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we can go on, or we don't have to? I put these up here for your benefit.
We should go on.
Okay. So lead has a symbol of what? Element 82.
PB.
Okay. What's the formula for that polyatomic ion?
SO4. -2.
Okay. Now, this has a charge of -2. Just one SO4 ion has a charge of -2. Okay. What different types of charges can lead have?
2 and 4.
Okay. So do you have to guess which one we're using? No. How do we know which one? The Roman numeral right here, +4. Those charges don't add up to 0.
You need 2 lead.
Okay. What's the least common multiple?
8.
What's the least common multiple? 4. Okay. What's 4 divided by 2? The answer you get is what you put down here. Okay. What's 4 divided by 4? We've got 1. Is there anything wrong with this?
Yeah, you need your brackets around the 4 and the
Okay? All right.
I thought you needed 2 lead.
Where would you get 2 from, though?
Because you have 4 sulfate.
4 oxygens.
That'd be -2. Or that'd
Okay.
be -8, and then 2.
What is 2 times -2?
-4.
Okay, what's 4 times 1? That adds up to 0, correct? Yeah. You're getting this confused. If I was to betting, this is what's confusing you. You're saying this is 4, but that's part of the formula. That has nothing to do with the charge of the entire compound. Okay? What is Cu? Element 29. Copper. Okay? What is NO3? Okay? So now, what is the charge of one nitrate ion? Okay? What does copper have for charges? Okay, so if we've got 1 nitrate ion, we need to have this copper to add up to what? To add up to 0.
3.
Well, okay, if we put 3 here, we've got a, that's,
No, it's just 1.
it's just 1.
That's part of the formula, Taylor.
Okay? So, it's copper what then? Okay, so I hear, I'm confused. So what do? We're not helping ourselves out. You are. What about the neighbor behind you? You said, I'm confused. So what are you doing to help yourself? What else could you be doing?
Probably writing it down.
I would agree. So why aren't you doing that?
But when you write it down, you pay more attention to writing it down than actually.
I don't know either. Okay, so is this copper 1 or copper 2?
1.
Copper 1. Okay? Now, so let's say, for instance, you ladies, you're playing basketball a week from today. That's when the postseason starts. The games are going to get more difficult, correct?
Are you sure they're not going to get easy?
Probably not.
They're pretty good.
What's pretty good? Right. But the further you get into postseason, does it get more difficult? Yes. So
They won't play first.
in a few weeks, would you want to know that this content's going to get more? I don't make it more difficult. The content gets more difficult. If we're having problems now, it's only going to get compounded later. Not because, I got them. It's the material. It's going to get more difficult. And I want you to be prepared. Yes?
So how is, like on the sulfate, how is 4 not part of the formula?
Okay? So the overall charge is -2, correct? Okay? So in this case, sulfur plus the oxygen is going to equal -2. Okay? Now, what does oxygen have for a charge? Negative what?
2.
Okay? Now, this has a -2. We don't know what sulfur is yet. But how many oxygens do you have? Okay? So what is 4 times -2? Okay, so sulfur plus a -8 equals -2. Okay, so that must mean this sulfur has a charge of +6, which it does. So the 4 has nothing to do with the overall charge unless you want to go through this math. To me, it would make a lot more sense just saying, accepting, oh, it's -2. Rather than looking at the 4 and saying that must be what the charge is. That's what's confusing you. Okay. Just like you got to take into account at any time, if you see a circle, you're going to have to multiply by something.
Fair enough.
If you see a circle, if you want to know their circumference, you're going to have to multiply by some constant. 3.14. You have to accept that. Okay? We're telling you this has a charge of -2. Just accept that like you have to multiply by 3.14. All right. So left side and left middle. Okay? Middle. Okay? Right side. When you're nodding your head yes, you're telling me that you understand. Everyone nodded their head yes. And if you don't, okay, what can you do to help yourself out? You can do that. You can find someone to help you. You can come talk to myself before or after school. Find a classmate to help you. You've got options. It's your choice to take that initiative. Okay. Sorry? You can turn it in before you leave, or you can turn it in when you come back. You just wanted it before you left, so maybe it's easier for you to do it, turn it in before you leave. That's up to you. Okay? You said you wanted to do the rest? Yeah. Is it just the naming, or is it the adding together and all of it?
Just the name. All of it.
Okay? So, what is the symbol for calcium? Okay? What is the symbol for the bromide ion? Okay? Start with your negative ions. Bromine is a halogen, so it's negative what? Okay? So, calcium is an alkaline earth metal. Plus what? +2. Because what column is calcium in? So it's +2. All right. So these charges do not add up to 0. Need 2 bromides. Does everyone understand why you need 2 bromides? So the charges add up to 0 now. All right. Ni is the symbol for what? Okay. F is the symbol for what? Okay. This has a charge of -1. So how many nickel ions do we have? Just 1 in the formula. So that must have a charge of +2. Now that adds up to 0. Yes. I just heard my name back here. Yes. Question? Okay. Iron is the symbol, has a symbol of what? Fe. Okay. Okay. Sulfate has a charge, is a formula of what? Okay. So what's the charge of sulfate? Okay. What's the charge? Iron is either what or what?
+2, +3.
Okay. So which one are we going to put in here because of that?
+3.
Okay. What is the least common multiple between 2 and 3?
6.
Okay. So you can, there's nothing wrong with doing this. The answer that you get tells you what to put below. 6 divided by 2.
3.
Okay. 6 divided by 2.
2.
I'm sorry, 6 divided by 3.
2.
Okay. So we don't quite have this right. Okay. Now we've got 3 sulfate ions. Now the charges add up to 0. Now, if you were to add together the atomic masses, iron has an atomic mass of what?
55. And you need to times that by 2.
Okay, so 55.85, 55.85. How many sulfate or sulfurs do we have?
2.
How many sulfurs do we have? Okay, so 32.
16 times 12.
Okay, and how many oxygens do we have? We've got 12 total. Okay, So therefore, what I'm going to do is take 16 times 12, okay? It gives me 192. Now when we add all those together, plus 32.07 plus 32.07, $339.91. Okay. So now, just verbally tell me, can we close the books on this one? Okay. SN is the symbol for what?
Tin.
Okay. What is OH?
Oxygen
Hydroxide. Okay. So, with that being said, you told me tin, that's right. This is hydroxide. This has a -1. And how many hydroxides do we have? 2. So tin can be either what or what?
2 or
So it's either +2 or +4. So what charge of tin do we need to add up to 0? Put it down, please. Thank you.
So then why'd you shoot there?
Tin what? +2. So what Roman numeral? There we go. Or yes, yes. That's what I means. All right. Okay, so is there any one of them that you want to go over together? Okay. I heard Al2. So Al2.
NH4. Wait, did you just get that?
Okay. So Al is the symbol for what?
Aluminum.
No, we didn't want to do that one. Yeah, could we possibly change it?
Okay. And SO4 is the symbol for what?
I already did that. We don't want to do that. That's like sulfate H4.
It is. So you correctly said sulfate. That's right. Now, what do you think? Do we need to put a Roman numeral for that? No. Couple reasons why. 1, it's not a D block element. 2, it only has one type of charge, +3. It doesn't have +2, it doesn't have +1, or anything in that nature. So, there you don't have to have a Roman numeral. Then the last thing that you need to do, okay, each aluminum has a mass of what? 26.999 something, right?
26.982.
So we're going to say 27 for the aluminums. How many of them do we have?
2.
So for the aluminums, we got 54.
32.07.
That's for the 2 aluminums. How many sulfurs do you have?
3.
Okay, so 32.07 times 3.
No, it means 01. It's 32.066.
Yes, 6 goes to 0.
Okay, and 96.21. Okay, and how many oxygens do we have?
192.
Okay, 12, because you got to distribute that. 4 times 3 gives you 12, times 16, 192. Then add them together. Okay, 10, 12, 1, 10, 15, 24, 2. I think that's right.
I mean, they are all pretty kind of easy.
You've been paying attention.
342.21. All right.
Wouldn't you need a...
Where'd you get your 54? Aluminum
Okay.
times 2.
Aluminum is 27. Times 2 gives you 54. Back row, sorry.
Wouldn't you need a 3 between your aluminum and...
Yeah.
Here? No. Okay, how many different types of charges does aluminum have? And it doesn't, it only has a +3. So, +3 minus 2, that adds up to 0. It only has one type of charge, +3 only. Okay, that's unlike tin that has 2 different types of charges. Iron, that has 2 different types of charges. Nickel has 2 different types of charges. That's correct.
So for like an alkali earth metal, you don't have to do the charge.
No, because it only has one type of charge. It's not long. Are you doing that? Right. Okay. We'll catch up to you next time.